Ah, shit. Is he really starting this series with comparing a 109-foot tall Woody to a steel gigacoaster almost 3 times as tall and twice as fast? Yes. Because while stats can help paint a good objective understanding of what's happening with the coaster, there's so much more to these rides than the basic numbers. How evenly matched Mystic Timbers and Orion are in competition is a clear testament to what I'm talking about. A coaster can flex its numbers willy-nilly for marketing and dick measuring purposes all day, but when these two statistically incomparable coasters are over 2,000 feet apart in length, yet finish their courses within 5 seconds of each other, clearly a different kind of science is needed. A science focusing on overall quality and not just quantity. Comparing what the rides truly do. And just that. I give you coaster science, bitch! Coaster science is performed with maximum room and optimal row conditions from a 5'8", 170-pound perspective. While coaster science does involve metrics like speed, height, and airtime, the determining factor in each of these categories will be their overall quality of execution and not statistical comparison. Getting right to the point, Mystic Timber starts out strong with a win in my considerations for its sense of speed. Mystic pulls off a huge win against lopsided stats here because while Orion may go an entire 38 miles an hour faster than Mystic's 53, I did not consistently perceive this speed on ride outside of short bursts. The valleys between the 8 large elements are all powerful while they last, but these points don't last very long, and only 3 of the ride's elements are really focused on speed, that being the drops exit, the massive turnaround, and the speed hill. Mystic, on the other hand, maintains a very quick and constant pace through 9 more total elements than Orion, with none of these 17 elements disrupting that constant sense of speed. Your sense of speed is also augmented by the ride's secluded setting and consistently close height to ground level. But even Mystic's taller hills just haul enough to keep more than airtime on your mind. Speaking of airtime, Orion is back in the fight with a win in this category. Orion's tasteful layout is all about beautiful, sustained, sweeping moments of airtime that nearly serve as an extension of the ride's space travel theme. There's only one element on the entire ride that doesn't give you some amount of airtime, and that's Orion's belt. For the rest of the ride, expect to be floating out of your seat anywhere from gracefully on the wave and reverse treble turns to absolutely standing on the drop in Outer Bank Hill. The ride's traditional Camelback Hill only suffers from being in the same park as Diamondback, the master of such hills in North America, because otherwise it still delivers a classic, strong and sustained floater pop, one virtually identical in strength to the famous hills of a ride like Mako. I've heard some emo rumblings about Orion's wave and reverse treble having little to no airtime, and you'll need a re-ride if you think this way. Both of these elements give noticeable floater airtime in the front half of the train, particularly on the right side for the wave turn. I've heard people even tout that this element's air is so weak or non-existent that it shouldn't even qualify as a wave turn, but you must have been stapled as fuck because I beg to differ, and so does this guy.
Difference that of what we call like a wave turn. A wave turn will get you to 0G. It'll get you kind of floating over the top, but a braking wave turn actually comes back on itself, and so that's what gives you the pop out at the top of the turn.
Despite not getting the win here, the airtime offered by Mystic is still super fun and similarly constant through the ride.
Mystic does have a whole fuck ton of air, but the air it does have doesn't exactly stand out in any way. It's prevalent through the entire layout, definitely enough air to qualify Mystic as a straight airtime machine, but the air present is consistently mid to strong-ish floater. And there really is a shit ton of this floater, but when it's essentially all the ride has, and especially when compared to the stronger, more varied and nuanced air of Orion, the battle becomes more clear. But
I'd even say the ride ends with its best airtime moment. This twisting ascent into the shed is quite aggressive, but isn't painful, and still carries the character of the ride's previous elements.
So how did you like that?
Loved it. I want to ride that horse again sometime. Ooh, yeah.
Wow.
Only a handful of Mystic's 17 elements don't give clear airtime, and these moments fill the gap with their great speed and laterals that give the ride perfect pacing and no dud elements. Mystic pulls ahead again through having superior pacing to Orion. Not only are you experiencing an element on average every 2.6 seconds, like I said previously, there are no dud elements and the ride demands attention throughout. While Orion's layout does stay true to the idea of expansive, sweeping moves with every element, there's a clear dud in the layout as far as engagement and re-rideability is concerned: the Helix. While generally perceived as an improvement over Fury 325's infamously large Helix, I find that the height of this element ultimately serves to take away too much of the ride's speed as it climbs, before meandering a bit at the top and dropping to regain its lost speed. I don't dislike this part of Orion, it's nothing like that. I've even grayed out there a few times, but I think a lower to the ground element similar to Fury's Helix would have made for a more natural transition into the following hill, instead of an element that accounts for an entire 20% of the ride's overall duration and doesn't do much with that time. It literally lasts 10 seconds. But on the topic of time, from drop to breaks, do you think that Mystic Timbers is longer than Orion? The majority of Orion reviews echo a basic sentiment that the ride isn't long or even short.
In short, Orion is, well, short.
However, this is easily more attributable to the pre-ride despair of Orion simply not being some record-breaking giga or even as long as Fury, which honestly are both moot points considering it never tried to be Fury. It offers a completely different experience from any other B&M Giga, and despite complaints, is ultimately 5 seconds longer than Mystic Timbers. As stated in the intro, objective lengths are not everything when determining a ride's quality, but subjective expectations and unjust comparisons can add up to a whole lot of negativity in the general perception of a ride. Despite being clearly shorter, Mystic is not commonly dinged points for being shorter because of the overall stellar quality of its experience. I just think every coaster deserves this opportunity to impress based on the extent of its character, and not only its character when waged against a more desired ride. But this is March Radness after all, so it's time to determine a winner. If we took it to the judges right now, we'd have Mystic Timbers winning 2-1 for having a superior sense of speed and more consistently engaging pace over Orion's superior airtime. But it's not that simple. For true coaster science to be done, every element must be considered. And the question must be asked, is it a banger?
Let me bang, man! I want to do that, man.
And from this, how much of the overall ride is spent banging? To my definition, a banger is an element that is not only objectively thrilling in the grand scheme of coaster sections, but also stands out within its ride as providing a noticeable and memorable moment of quality, whether in sense of speed or presence of noticeable positive or negative G-force. Applying this banger metric to Mystic and Orion, we get confirmation that both of these rides are absolutely above average on the banger scale and boast very similar scores to each other. I identify 12 of Mystic's 17 elements as bangers, leading to an impressive 70.5% of the ride being spent banging. Mystic Timbers keeps exciting elements coming at a nearly constant pace, and those curves will have you coming back for more. Back on the other side of the park, Orion actually exceeds this quality standard. 6 of Orion's 8 elements bang, leading to a score of 75%. The only elements that don't hold the banger standard are the previously mentioned Helix and reverse treble clef turnaround. This turnaround is close to being a banger, but loses enough energy from the massive 202-foot climb that its resulting speed is more akin to the moments after a B&M Hypers drop. Still great and fast, but not banging my brains out. But speaking to this point, Orion doesn't really lay pipe like that. In even its most banger moments, the airtime Orion does give doesn't have otherworldly strength, but it is always very sustained. and sometimes still super strong. Orion's drop has noticeably stronger air than Fury's and Leviathan's, and its tremendous Outer Bank hill is one of my favorite airtime moments in general, for essentially being an ejector version of Fury's famous hive dive. The typically poorly received wave turn is also an elite element for bringing extremely sustained lateral floater air throughout the element, most notably in the far right seats of Orion's first two rows. This element is extremely underrated, so I want to properly bring attention to it by saying I was way further out of my seat on this than Steel Vengeance's Outer Bank. The airtime is not stronger, but it's every bit as sustained, and the element brings a strange zen to be so peacefully floating sideways through the air almost 200 feet up after just booking it at 91 miles an hour. Ultimately, it is the presence of these elite elements that seal Orion as our winner in this first round matchup. Mystic Timbers is a legendary ride full of exciting twists and turns, and if you've got proper room, you'll be out of your seat more than in it throughout the ride. However, none of these moments, despite banging, gave me a truly special and unique force that I can't find anywhere else. Mystic Timbers is still my favorite GCI by far, but outside of the niche trick track section, it doesn't contain anything that I can't find on White Lightning or Thunderhead. It just has superior versions of their elements at an improved pace, with a tremendous setting in the woods and wonderful theme to boot. Orion, on the other hand, not only trumps some of B&M's classic elements with the improved drop and turnaround sections, but expands the company's palette of forces into the modern, more creative space, with multiple standout moments of sideways airtime, one tastefully graceful, and the other being a surprising statement of the force B&M can deliver when they choose. This moment near the end of Orion absolutely fucks and must be experienced in the back row, specifically in the far right seat for maximum lateral and airtime strength. Standing diagonal ejector on a B&M, I shit you not.
Dude, thank you so much for hanging out, though. I fucking love talking about these rides, and here's what the rest of the March Radness bracket is looking like. Let me know down below what matchups you're looking forward to, who you expect to win the whole fucking thing, and if you thought I was right in this video, and if my music sucks. See ya.